My name is Margaret Lane. I am 58 years old, a widow, and a nurse who works night shifts. I raised my son, Adam, by myself after his father died. I am not fancy. I do not wear designer shoes. I do not know the names of expensive wine, but I know how to show up, how to love, and how to keep my word. That is who I am. And this is what happened. The ballroom lights were soft and golden. Music floated like warm air. People laughed and clinked glasses. I stood near the corner, happy and a little nervous, watching my son dance with his bride, Vanessa. Her dress sparkled like snow. His smile shone bright. I held a small silver purse in my hands. Inside it was an envelope, my gift to them. When the song ended, Vanessa walked toward me. She looked me up and down, from my simple navy dress to my old black shoes. She did not smile. She picked up a plastic tray from a server's cart and shoved it into my hands like it was a joke. "Here," she said loudly, with a sweet, sharp voice that cut the room. "This is all you're good for, passing plastic cups." People near us began to snicker. Someone tried to hide a laugh behind a napkin. I felt my ears burn. My fingers shook around the tray. I heard the words echo in my head like church bells. "This is all you're good for." Adam stood frozen on the dance floor. He looked from her to me. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The band went quiet. Even the ice in the glasses seemed to stop clinking. I set the tray down on the nearest table. I did not make a scene. I did not cry. I reached into my purse, took out the thick white envelope, and placed it on the gift table next to the glittering boxes and the tall vase of white roses. I looked at my son one last time. Then I quietly turned around and walked out of the ballroom. Behind me, a voice shouted, "Open Margaret's envelope." Chairs scraped, feet rushed, paper tore, and then the whole room fell silent. Now, let me tell you how we got here. When Adam met Vanessa, it felt like a movie. He came home from work one day. He had just started at a tech company in the city and said, "Mom, I met someone." His eyes were bright. He talked fast. Vanessa was smart. Vanessa was beautiful. Vanessa liked the same coffee. He did. She laughed at his jokes. He said she was kind. I wanted to believe him. I want good things for my child. I smiled and made meatloaf and mashed potatoes his favorite, and I told him to bring her by. The first time I met Vanessa, she hugged me with only her arms, not her heart. She wore a tiny gold watch and a dress the color of cream. She complimented the curtains. She said, "Oh, how cozy," in a way that made cozy sound like small. She ate 2 bites of meatloaf and pushed her plate away. "I'm on a plan," she said, "a pre-wedding plan." It was the first time she said wedding, and they had been dating only 3 weeks. After they left, I washed the plates with slow hands and tried to be fair. Maybe she was nervous. Maybe I was being old-fashioned. Maybe I was just protective. I promised myself I would be kind. I was kind. I invited her to Sunday dinners. I saved her a chair next to me at church on holidays. I helped her find a tailor when she needed a dress hemmed. I told her where to get the best blueberries. When she lost her job, I sent her a gift card for groceries. She thanked me with a text, "Thanks, Margaret." Not Mom, not Mrs. Lane. Margaret, like I was a hotel clerk. Still, I did not mind. Names are just names, I told myself. Hearts matter more. But little things added up like sand in a shoe. She would walk into my home and fix the picture frames without asking. She would tell me my sweaters were brave choices. She would call my son at midnight and cry because he had not liked a photo on her page. She would say things like, "Adam is going places," and then look me up and down like I was the place he should escape. When she was happy, she could be sunshine. When she was not, she could be winter. One night, Adam came by with a folder. He sat at my kitchen table and took a deep breath. Mom, Vanessa and I found a venue, he said. It's beautiful, but the deposit is huge. We can cover most of it, but if you can help a little, it would mean a lot. His cheeks turned pink. He hated asking. I folded my hands. How much is a little? He told me the number. It was not a little. It was a toothache of a number. It buzzed behind my eyes. It was more than my best car had ever cost. I looked at my son, the same boy who had once used a laundry basket as a spaceship. How do you say no to the person you love most, when you can help, even if it hurts? I'll help, I said. His shoulders dropped with relief. He came around the table and hugged me. You're the best. I smiled. I also could not sleep that night. I opened my old metal box where I saved things that mattered. Inside were years of careful work, extra shifts, small checks, the quiet savings of a single mother. I took a deep breath and moved money around. I found a way. We paid the deposit. The dates were set. The lists were made. I bought a dress, simple, navy, soft. I cleaned my shoes until they shined. I booked a cheap room near the venue, even though the hotel at the venue was expensive and loud. I told myself it did not matter where I slept. What mattered was my son's smile when he said, I do. The week of the wedding, Vanessa's mother, Cheryl, called me. She had a voice like a bell. Margaret, she said, I'm planning the seating chart. I'll put you at table 9. The family of the groom at table 1 is so old-fashioned. Vanessa wants a modern feel. I held the phone tight. I'm Adam's only parent. I said softly. Of course, Cheryl said. Table 9 has a great view of the dessert bar. I did not argue. Sometimes arguing only proves the other person was never listening. I hung up and made a pie for the rehearsal dinner. At the rehearsal dinner, I sat at a long table away from the couple, between a cousin I had never met and a man who sold luxury pens. The cousin talked about her dogs. The pen man talked about ink. Vanessa gave a toast about starting a new chapter and called out 6 people by name to thank them. My name was not one of them. Adam caught my eye and gave me a tiny sorry look. I smiled back, the way mothers do, with my chin up. When it was time for gifts at the small family exchange, I gave them a small box with 2 hand-stitched napkins. I had sewn the letters A and V on them, neat and careful. Vanessa crinkled her nose and said, Oh, handmade. Cute. She put the napkins back in the box, as if hand-stitched letters might bite. After dinner, Adam walked me to my car. Mom, don't mind her, he said, nervous. She gets weird about things being perfect. I know, I said. I touched his cheek. You be kind, even when other people forget how. He nodded, but his eyes looked tired. The night before the wedding, I sat on my bed and held the envelope. It was thick for a reason. Inside was not just a card. It was not just money. For years, I had saved something special for my son's wedding day. Something to give him a real start. Something that said, I believe in your future. It had taken me a long time to build it, step by step, like a bridge over deep water. I had planned to hand it to him with both hands and a kiss on the cheek. But then I thought of the way Vanessa had handed me the napkins back, like they were a mistake. I thought of table 9. I thought of the deposit I had covered without a proper thank you. I thought of my son's face, pulled thin by trying to please everyone. I changed my plan. I wrote a note and placed it on top of the papers inside the envelope. I slid the envelope into my purse and zipped it. I slept for 3 hours and woke before dawn. I ironed my dress again. I checked my purse 3 times. Then I drove to the venue. The morning moved like a parade. Photos, flowers, hushed voices, spray of perfume in the air. Adam looked so handsome in his tux that my heart hurt. He hugged me tight. "Love you, Mom," he said. "Always." "Always," I said. The ceremony was pretty. The vows were simple and sweet. When they kissed, people cheered. I clapped. I meant it. I want my child to be happy. I want peace. The reception began. The room was huge and bright. A long table held gifts wrapped in silver paper and white bows. The band played old songs. The waiters circled with trays. People toasted to love. I stayed at the edge and watched like a lighthouse far from shore. Then came the moment. Vanessa stepped away from a cluster of guests. She looked at me with her chin tilted. The server cart rolled by. She lifted the tray of plastic cups with one hand and put it in mine. She smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "This is all you're good for," she said. Something inside me went very still. I heard the music drop off, string by string, until there was only my breath. I looked down at the cups. I set the tray down. I took the envelope from my purse, heavy, white, quiet, and placed it on the gift table between a silver box and a tall vase. I turned and left the room. I walked down the hallway with my head up. The carpet was soft under my feet. My heart beat hard, but steady like a drum that knows the song. I could feel eyes on my back. I could hear whispers following like little shadows. I did not speed up. I did not slow down. I pushed open the side door and stepped into the cool air. Outside, the sky was pale blue. A breeze moved the leaves. The hotel fountain whispered. I breathed in deep, filling my lungs with something clean. Behind me, the ballroom doors banged open. "Open Margaret's envelope," someone called. Laughing, curious voices tumbled after the words. Feet ran. Paper tore. Then silence. It was not a soft silence. It was hard and sudden, like a storm cut off by a switch. It rolled down the hallway and out the door like a wave that had lost its sound. I felt it on my skin. I stood by the fountain and took off my shoes. My feet ached, but my chest felt light. A young server came outside, holding a tray and looking pale. She saw me and stopped. "Ma'am," she whispered, eyes wide. "There." Her earpiece crackled. She swallowed and ran back inside. I sat on the edge of the fountain. I did not cry. I did not smile. I watched the water sparkle in the sun and thought about the first night I brought Adam home from the hospital, wrapped like a burrito. I thought about the way he had laughed as a child, big and loud, like he did not know how to hold joy softly. I thought about the years I worked doubles, the lunches I packed, the drawings I taped to the fridge. Love builds things you cannot see until the day someone tries to tear them down. I heard heels snapping on the stone. Cheryl, Vanessa's mother, came out like a storm in pearls. She glared at me with eyes like glass. "What did you do?" she hissed, voice low and tight. I held her gaze. "I gave a wedding gift." I said. "That was not a gift," she said. "That was—" She stopped. She looked back at the doors, as if afraid they might open and swallow her. "You have ruined a beautiful day." I slipped my shoes back on and stood. Your daughter handed me a tray of plastic cups and told me that was all I was good for. I said softly. I did not throw the cups. I did not shout. I gave my gift and I left. She stared at me like I had spoken a language she could not understand. "You people never know your place," she said under her breath. "Maybe you don't know mine either," I said. Before she could answer, a shout cracked through the air from inside the ballroom. It was raw and full of shock. Another voice followed, high and broken. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. The band stopped. For one long second, the hotel seemed to hold its breath. My phone buzzed in my purse. I pulled it out. Adam's name lit the screen. I answered, Adam, he was breathing fast. Mom, he said, voice shaking, where are you? By the fountain. Don't move, he said. Please. The line clicked. He hung up. My knees went soft. I gripped the edge of the fountain to steady myself. A server ran past. Then a groomsman. Then the wedding planner. Her clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. The side door flew open again, and 3 people spilled out, talking over each other. One of them saw me and went quiet, yanking the others to a stop. They stared. Their faces looked like they had seen a ghost. In the doorway behind them, I could see the edge of the gift table. The white roses had tipped, boxes had slid, and my envelope was open. A gust of wind lifted the fountain spray and misted my face. It felt like the smallest baptism. I stood up straight and smoothed my dress. I tucked a loose hair behind my ear. I waited. Footsteps thundered. The crowd inside swelled like a wave, moving toward the doors, driven by something big and strange. Voices rose, tangled with fear and anger. Someone cried my name. Someone else said, "Call someone." The sound shook the air. I took one slow step toward the door. That was when the side door slammed fully open, and a tall figure stumbled out, white as paper, eyes red, hands shaking. People poured out behind him, pressing, pushing, whispering, gasping. He looked at me like I was the ground, and he was a man on a cliff. "Margaret," he said, voice breaking. "You can't just—" His words cut off. Behind him, more glass crashed to the floor. A chair fell. A new scream tore through the hall, louder and closer, like something had finally snapped. And then the lights in the hallway flickered, once, twice, and went out. The hallway was dark, the kind of dark that feels heavy, like it has weight. A murmur rolled through the guests as phones lit up the space with shaky little squares of light. Shadows danced on the walls. I could hear Vanessa's sharp voice somewhere inside, rising and falling like glass breaking over and over again. Adam's voice followed, rough and strained. Then silence again, sharp and dangerous. I stayed by the fountain, my hands clasped in front of me. My chest was tight, but I forced myself to breathe slow. I had spent too many years surviving storms to fall apart in this one. When the lights snapped back on, the crowd inside the ballroom roared to life. Gasps, yells, hurried footsteps. Someone yelled, "Check again. Is this real?" Another voice hissed, "Shut up. Don't say it out loud." A few seconds later, the doors burst open. Adam came running out. His tie was loose, his face pale as if he'd seen a ghost. He grabbed my shoulders. "Mom, what did you do?" His voice cracked between anger and fear. "I didn't flinch. I gave you a gift." He searched my face like a drowning man looking for a lifeline. "You don't understand. They're all looking at me like I lied to them. Like I'm not who I said I was." Before I could answer, Vanessa stormed out behind him. Her veil was crooked, her eyes wild, her hands clutching her dress like she needed to keep it from tearing apart. She pointed at me with a trembling finger. "You ruined everything," she screamed. "Do you know what you've done? Do you know what you've exposed?" The crowd pressed closer, spilling through the doorway. Whispers buzzed like hornets, filling the air. "I can't believe it. Did you see? Is that true? How could they not tell us?" I stood straighter. My son was caught between me and his bride, and the guests hovered like vultures waiting to feast on the truth. I opened my mouth to speak, and then, from the far end of the hallway, a man's voice thundered. "Everyone back inside now." The hotel manager, red-faced and sweating, pushed through the guests. His eyes darted between me, Adam, and Vanessa. He looked like he knew something bigger than all of us was about to explode. The crowd froze. A woman in a silver dress clutched her pearls. A groomsman's hand hovered near the gift table, like he couldn't let go of what he had seen inside my envelope. Then the sound came, deep, guttural, and heart-stopping. Vanessa's father, Cheryl's husband, let out a roar from inside the ballroom. A crash followed, like a table flipping over. And just like that, panic spread through the crowd. People shoved past one another. Some ran toward the ballroom. Some ran away from it. Adam clutched my hand like a little boy again, and for a moment I felt his wedding suit melt away into the jeans and sneakers of his childhood. "Mom," he whispered, voice trembling. Please tell me you didn't." But before I could answer him, the hotel lights flickered again, and then every window in the ballroom glowed with the flash of police sirens pulling up outside. And the night turned from whispers and broken glass into something much, much bigger. Red and blue light spilled across the marble floor, flashing through the ballroom windows like jagged lightning. The sound of police sirens sliced through the night, growing louder as the cars skidded to a stop just outside the hotel. Guests gasped and pressed against the glass, their expensive gowns and tuxedos glittering under the strobing lights. Adam's grip on my hand tightened until it almost hurt. "Mom," he whispered, eyes darting to the door, "why are the police here?" I said nothing. I had learned long ago that silence can cut deeper than words. Vanessa spun on her heels, her veil tearing loose, her makeup streaked from sweat and tears. She stormed toward the entrance, her voice shrill. "This is insane. They can't just barge in here on my wedding night." But they did. The ballroom doors burst open, and 2 uniformed officers stepped inside, followed by another pair carrying radios. Their faces were stone, their voices calm but commanding. "Nobody leaves this building," one of them barked. "Stay where you are." The crowd erupted into nervous whispers. People clutched their phones, trying to record, others hiding their faces. The wedding planner, pale and trembling, tried to approach the officers, but was waved back. Adam looked at me again, his face pale. "Mom, what did you put in that envelope?" I finally spoke, my voice steady. The truth. Before he could ask again, an officer walked straight to the gift table. He bent, picked up the torn envelope with gloved hands, and showed it to his partner. They both exchanged a look. Sharp, knowing, heavy with something no one else could yet understand. "Ladies and gentlemen," the taller officer said loudly, his voice echoing off the chandeliers, "we need the bride and groom to step forward." The ballroom fell silent again. Vanessa laughed, nervously, waving her hand as though shooing away a fly. "This is ridiculous. It's just a wedding gift. Who calls the cops over a gift?" But no one laughed with her, not even her parents. Cheryl looked like she might faint. Her husband stood stiff and silent, his fists clenched, his jaw grinding. The officers didn't move until Adam, pale and shaking, finally stepped forward. Vanessa hissed at him under her breath, "Don't you dare," but he pulled away. The officer looked at both of them, then back down at the envelope. "This gift contains evidence connected to an ongoing investigation." Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave. Vanessa staggered back. No, that's impossible. This is a wedding. This isn't, her voice cracked, and she turned to her parents. Tell them this isn't real." But Cheryl didn't move, and her husband didn't speak. Adam's voice trembled as he turned to me. "Mom, what investigation?" I held his eyes, and though my heart pounded, my voice came out calm. "The one that should have started years ago." At that moment, one of the officers' radios crackled. "Unit confirmed. We're bringing them in." The officer nodded, then looked at Adam and Vanessa. "We're going to need you both to come with us." Now, the room exploded with noise, shouts, cries, gasps. Guests stumbled back, some whispering in horror, others grabbing their coats. A bridesmaid dropped her bouquet. petals scattering across the floor like broken glass. And as Adam and Vanessa were led toward the exit, Vanessa whipped around to face me. Her eyes burned with rage. "You'll regret this, Margaret. You'll regret it for the rest of your life." But I didn't flinch. I simply stood there, silent and steady, while the sirens outside wailed louder and louder, swallowing her voice whole. And that was when the first reporter's van screeched up to the hotel. The reporter's van skidded to a stop outside the hotel, its headlights cutting through the night like sharp knives. Within seconds, 2 cameramen jumped out, their equipment already humming, the red recording lights glowing like watchful eyes. Guests crowded the windows, pressing against the glass in panic, while others ducked behind curtains as if hiding would erase what they had just witnessed. The officers tightened their grip on Adam and Vanessa, guiding them toward the entrance. The doors opened, and the chill of flashing cameras met them instantly. Shouts erupted, reporters firing questions rapid fire, microphones thrust forward. "Mr. Lane, Mrs. Lane, is it true? What's in the envelope? Were you hiding money? Fraud? Family secrets?" The night air turned electric with scandal. Vanessa covered her face with trembling hands, shrieking, "Stop filming me! This is my wedding day." Adam kept his head low, his lips pressed tight, but his shoulders trembled with the weight of it all. I stayed just inside the doorway, watching the scene unfold. My heart hurt for my son. He was caught in the storm, swept away by choices that were not all his own. But another part of me, the part that had been silenced and pushed aside for years, stood rooted with quiet strength. This was not just chaos. It was justice waking up after a long sleep. The officer holding the envelope stepped forward, his voice steady. "Everyone calm down. This will be handled properly." He turned to Cheryl and her husband, who had finally pushed their way to the front. Their faces were pale, their eyes darting like trapped animals. "Ma'am, sir," the officer said firmly, "you'll need to answer some questions as well." The ballroom gasped again, louder this time. Cheryl swayed on her heels as if she might collapse. Her husband's jaw locked, but his silence screamed louder than words. Vanessa spun toward them, her voice shrill and broken. "What are they talking about? Mom? Dad? Why are they saying this?" But neither parent spoke. Cheryl clutched her pearls so tightly her knuckles went white, while her husband stared down at the floor, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. The whispers began to grow into a storm. Guests murmured, theories tumbling over one another like dominoes. "It's fraud. No, it's stolen money. I heard it was identity theft." "What if it's worse?" Adam turned back to me, his eyes wide, desperate, like a child lost in the woods. "Mom," he pleaded, his voice cracking, "please tell me what you did." I took a step forward, steady, calm, though my knees felt weak. "Adam," I said softly, "I didn't ruin your wedding. I only revealed the truth about the people standing beside you." The room went silent again, every ear straining, every heart waiting. But before Adam could reply, chaos broke loose. The hotel doors slammed open as more police officers rushed in, followed by 2 men in plain clothes with sharp eyes and badges flashing at their belts. They moved with urgency, their voices brisk and commanding. "Secure the ballroom. Separate the families. Nobody leaves until we've spoken to them." The officers moved quickly, splitting guests, guiding them into groups, taking notes. The reporters outside pressed closer, their voices muffled but insistent, hungry for scraps of scandal. Vanessa screamed and clawed at Adam's arm. "She's lying. It's all lies. Don't you see what she's doing? She's jealous. She's bitter. She wants to ruin us." Adam's face was pale, torn between the woman he had just married and the mother who had raised him. His eyes flickered back and forth, searching for truth, searching for ground under his feet. And then, a loud, heavy thud echoed from the gift table. Everyone turned, One of the plainclothed men had set the opened envelope down with gloved hands, and something inside had slipped free, landing on the table with a sharp, unmistakable sound. It wasn't money. It wasn't jewelry. It was a set of legal documents, papers stamped with official seals, marked with numbers and signatures that carried weight. The officer picked them up, flipping through them quickly. His eyebrows rose, his lips pressed into a thin line. He looked up at Cheryl's husband. "Sir, you'll want to come with us." The crowd gasped again, the ballroom now thick with dread and curiosity. And at that exact moment, one of the chandeliers above the dance floor creaked loudly, swaying as though even the building itself could not stand steady under the truth about to be revealed. The chandelier above the dance floor swayed, its crystals catching the flashing red and blue lights bleeding in from outside. Gasps rippled through the guests, as though they expected it to fall, to crash, to bring the whole building down along with the night's secrets. The plain-clothed officer stacked the documents neatly, his gloved fingers tracing the seals and signatures. He looked up, his eyes sharp and unblinking. "Mr. Whitmore," he said firmly, addressing Vanessa's father, "we've been looking for these papers for a long time." The room froze. Mr. Whitmore's face drained of color. His lips pressed tight, but the tremor in his jaw betrayed him. Cheryl grabbed his arm, her pearls clattering against her chest. "What is he talking about, Henry?" she hissed, though her voice shook as if she already knew the answer. Vanessa spun in place, wild-eyed. "Dad, what is this? Why are they saying that? This is our wedding. Someone explain this." But no one could calm her now. The officer lifted the top sheet for the crowd to see. "These," he announced, "are forged property deeds, tied to a case involving stolen land and illegal transfers. Millions of dollars worth." The ballroom exploded. Gasps, shouts, whispers, so loud the chandeliers trembled again. Guests pressed back against the walls, some clutching their chests, others shaking their heads in disbelief. A bridesmaid began crying, while a groomsman muttered, "No way! Not them! Not at this wedding." Adam staggered back, his hands gripping the sides of his head. "No, no, this can't be happening." Vanessa's face twisted in fury. She turned on me, jabbing a finger like a dagger. "You planted that. You're framing my family. Admit it." But the officer cut her off. "Ma'am, these documents were verified before they ever reached this room. Your mother and father have been under quiet investigation for over a year. Tonight, thanks to this envelope, we have enough to move forward." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. All eyes turned to me, some full of shock, some of suspicion, some, just a few, were full of something else, respect. Adam stumbled toward me, his eyes red. "Mom," his voice cracked, "you knew about this?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I knew enough," I said softly. "Enough to know you were marrying into something dangerous. Enough to know that if I didn't act, you'd pay the price for their sins." The words landed like thunder. Adam's shoulders slumped. He looked at Vanessa, who stood trembling, her mascara streaked down her face. He looked back at his new in-laws, their secrets spilling across the ballroom floor like broken glass. Then, finally, he looked at me. Before he could speak, chaos surged again. Mr. Whitmore lunged toward the officer, his hand reaching for the documents. "Those aren't yours," he bellowed. His voice cracked, desperate, like a man watching his empire burn to ashes. The officers reacted instantly. They pinned him against the gift table, documents clattering to the floor. Cheryl screamed. Vanessa shrieked. Guests scattered. Cameras outside flashed wildly as reporters pushed closer to the windows. Adam stood frozen, torn between running toward his bride and her collapsing family, or standing with me, the mother who had just set his entire world on fire. And in that suspended moment, As the officers read Mr. Whitmore his rights and dragged him toward the door, Vanessa collapsed to her knees on the dance floor, her white gown pooling around her like spilled milk. Her scream echoed through the ballroom, sharp and broken. "You've ruined my life." And she wasn't looking at her father when she said it. She was looking at me. Vanessa's scream still hung in the air, vibrating off the chandelier crystals, settling into the bones of every guest in that ballroom. Her white gown spread around her like a broken halo, her hands clutching the polished floor as if she could stop it from caving beneath her. And her eyes, wild, furious, wet, were locked on me. "You've ruined my life," she held again, her voice cracking, her throat raw. Every head in the room swung toward me. I felt their stares like hot coals on my skin, accusations, pity, curiosity, fear. Some clutched their drinks tighter. Some shook their heads. Some whispered like snakes behind cupped palms. And Adam, my son, stood between us, his body rigid, his face torn in half. He turned toward Vanessa first. His hands trembled as he reached down, trying to lift her. "Nessa, get up. Please get up." His voice shook, tender but desperate. He was still trying to save her from drowning, even as she clawed him under. She slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me," she spat, her mascara running in ugly streaks. "You knew, didn't you? You knew, and you let her do this." Adam froze. "Knew what? That your mother hated me?" she screamed. "That she wanted to destroy me. This was her plan all along, dragging me down, humiliating me, making sure I could never escape her shadow." Her words hit him like stones. He stumbled back, his lips parting, searching for defense, for truth, for something he could hold. But his eyes, they flickered to me. And in that flicker, I saw the little boy I raised, the boy who once ran home with scraped knees and whispered, "Don't be mad, Mom. I didn't mean to." The boy who had trusted me with his whole world. Now he looked at me like I was holding his life in my hands again. "Mom," his voice was small, breaking. Tell me this isn't about revenge. Tell me you didn't do this just to punish her." The room held its breath. Even the officers paused, documents in hand, their radios buzzing softly but ignored. I swallowed, my throat tight, but my voice came out steady. "Adam, this wasn't about revenge. This was about protection. Yours." Gasps rippled through the crowd again, soft but sharp. Someone whispered, "Protection? From what?" Before Adam could speak, the ballroom doors burst open again. 2 more officers entered, dragging in a man in handcuffs. He wore a cheap suit, his hair slicked back, his face pale and sweaty. His eyes darted around the room until they landed on Cheryl. She screamed, "No, not here, not in front of them." The officer holding him barked, "This man has been working with Mr. Whitmore. He's the one who facilitated the transfers. We have testimony, and now, thanks to these documents, we have proof." The crowd erupted. Someone shouted, "I knew it!" Another covered her child's ears. The groomsmen exchanged wide-eyed looks, one muttering, "This is bigger than we thought." Vanessa staggered to her feet, her gown dragging behind her. She stumbled toward her parents, her hands clawing at Cheryl's arms. "Mom, Dad, tell them this isn't true. Please, say something." But Cheryl crumpled into a chair, her face hidden in her hands. Mr. Whitmore struggled against the officers, but his words were nothing but curses. And then, as silence crept back into the room, Vanessa turned once more to Adam. Her voice cracked, but it carried like a knife. "If you don't walk away from her right now," she snarled, pointing straight at me, "then you're not my husband. You're her little boy forever." The ballroom froze. All eyes turned to Adam. His chest rose and fell. His fists clenched. His eyes darted between his wife, demanding, broken, furious, and me standing still, silent, steady. The air was so thick with tension you could cut it with a knife. And then, in one sudden, shocking movement, Adam did something no one in that room expected. He stepped forward, not to Vanessa, but to me. Gasps rang out like gunfire. Vanessa screamed, her face crumpling. She fell to the floor again, pounding her fists against the marble, her voice shrill and echoing. No, no, you picked her over me. Adam turned his back on her. His voice was low, trembling but clear. Mom, let's go. And just as he said it, just as the whole room reeled in disbelief, glass shattered at the far end of the ballroom. A rock had been hurled through one of the tall windows, crashing into the middle of the dance floor. Screams erupted. Guests ducked. Waiters scattered. Officers spun toward the sound with hands on their belts. But what made the room truly freeze wasn't the broken glass. It was the note tied to the rock. A note that one officer picked up, unrolled, and read aloud with a voice like gravel. This isn't the end. The ballroom was chaos. Shards of glass glittered across the polished floor, mixing with the scattered petals from the bouquet that had fallen earlier. Guests screamed and scrambled for cover, some ducking beneath tables, others clutching their children, their high heels and polished shoes slipping on the slick marble. The officer holding the note raised his hand for silence, but the noise of panic drowned him out. The words he had read, "This isn't the end," echoed in every mind, heavy and terrifying. Vanessa clung to her mother, her sobs raw and broken. Cheryl rocked back and forth in her chair, whispering prayers under her breath, while Mr. Whitmore thrashed against his cuffs, his fury boiling over. "You don't know who you're dealing with," he bellowed. "You think this ends with me? You're fools, all of you." The plain-clothed officers exchanged sharp glances, their jaws tightening. One muttered into his radio, "We may have a bigger situation here. Call for backup." Adam pulled me close, his hands trembling on my shoulders. His voice was hoarse. "Mom, what does this mean? Who sent that note?" I looked at the glass, at the trembling guests, at the police trying to contain the storm, and I said quietly, "It means someone else knows the truth. And they're not finished." The words seemed to pull the air out of the room. Adam's face went pale. The lead officer held up the note again, his voice firm this time. "Nobody leaves until we've secured the area. This is no longer just a wedding. This is an active investigation." Guests groaned and protested. "We didn't sign up for this," one man shouted. "I want to go home," another cried. But the officers pushed everyone back, corralling them into corners, keeping them away from the shattered window. Vanessa's fury reignited. She tore herself from Cheryl's arms and staggered toward Adam, her white gown dragging behind her like a storm cloud. "You did this," she screamed, her voice echoing in the broken hall. "You and your witch of a mother. You wanted to destroy me, to humiliate me. Now you've put us all in danger." Adam flinched, but I stepped in front of him, my eyes locked on hers. "No, Vanessa," I said calmly, though my heart hammered in my chest. "This danger didn't come from me. It came from the lies your family built their fortune on." Her face twisted, her fists clenched, her body trembling. For a moment, I thought she might strike me, but before she could, the officer with the documents raised his voice again. "These papers tie directly to land theft, farmland sold under forged signatures, stolen from families who never even knew it was taken. And based on the names in here," he tapped the stack with his finger, "there are partners we haven't even spoken to yet. Powerful ones." The whispers rose again, more fearful this time. "Stolen land. That's federal. Who else is involved?" Adam's head dropped into his hands. His body shook. How could I not have known? How could I be so blind? I laid a hand on his shoulder, my voice soft but steady. "Because love can blind us, son, but it doesn't mean it has to bury us." Before he could respond, the hotel doors slammed open again. This time, it wasn't police. It was a man in a black suit, his face hidden under a cap pulled low. He didn't run. He didn't shout. He just walked in calmly, his shoes crunching on the glass, as though he belonged there. The officers moved, instantly, guns drawn. Stop! Hands where we can see them. But the man only raised his hands slowly, a smirk curling his lips, and in his right hand, dangling between two fingers, was a second envelope, identical to the one I had placed on the gift table. Gasps filled the ballroom. My stomach twisted. The man's voice was deep, smooth, unnerving. If you think that envelope ended things, he tossed the second one onto the floor, where it slid across the marble and landed at the officer's feet. You're wrong. The room held its breath. And then he said words that made even the officers freeze, because she wasn't the only one with secrets. His eyes flicked to me, straight to me. The ballroom seemed to shrink the moment his eyes locked on me. Hundreds of guests stood frozen, but I felt as if the man's words had silenced the entire world, because she wasn't the only one with secrets. The note hung in the air, like smoke after a fire. His smirk deepened, like he was enjoying the unease crawling across every face in that room. The officers didn't hesitate. Two rushed forward, grabbing his arms and forcing him against the wall. His hat fell to the ground, revealing a sharp face with dark, cold eyes. He didn't fight. He didn't shout. He simply let them cuff him, his smirk never fading. One officer snatched up the second envelope from the floor. The room collectively leaned forward, curiosity clawing at them despite their fear. The envelope looked identical to mine. White, thick, sealed carefully. The plain-clothed officer who held my documents earlier frowned, studying the envelope as though it were a snake coiled and waiting. He hesitated before sliding a gloved finger under the flap. Vanessa broke the silence first, her voice shrill. Don't you dare open that. It's another trick from her. She jabbed her finger toward me again, her face twisted with rage. She's trying to frame all of us. First my father, now who? Me. Adam flinched at her words. He looked at her, then at me, his eyes hollow and confused. He was drowning, pulled between two worlds, and I couldn't reach him yet. The officer ignored Vanessa's cries and tore the envelope open. He pulled out a thick stack of papers bound together with a red ribbon. Gasps rose again as the ribbon slipped and the sheets spilled across the table. The officer picked up the first one, his brow furrowing deeper with every line he read. His partner leaned over his shoulder, eyes widening. This, the officer muttered, his voice low but carrying enough to silence the whispers. This is tied to offshore accounts. Shell companies. Millions hidden in fake businesses. This isn't just land theft. This is money laundering. The ballroom erupted again. Gasps, shouts, even laughter from a guest who clearly couldn't process the weight of what was unfolding. A woman in a red dress fainted, collapsing into her husband's arms. Someone else shouted, "We need to get out of here." The officers barked for calm, but the panic was rising too fast. Vanessa's face drained of all color. She swayed on her feet, gripping the table to keep herself upright. No, this isn't real. It can't be. Mom. Her voice cracked as she turned to Cheryl. Tell me this isn't real. But Cheryl couldn't speak. Her face was pale, her body trembling, her eyes locked on the papers like they were knives stabbing straight through her. Adam took a shaky step toward me, his voice barely above a whisper. Mom, did you know about this too? I met his eyes, steady though my chest ached. No, not this. I pointed at the man cuffed against the wall. But he did. Every head turned to him. The stranger smirked again, his eyes glinting with cruel amusement. You think Margaret is some angel here? He sneered. She's been holding on to dirt for years. And I'm the one who helped collect it. She's not as innocent as you all believe. Gasps swept the room. Dozens of eyes snapped back to me, suspicion curling in their stares. Vanessa seized the moment. She pointed at me with a triumphant glare, her voice venomous. "See? I told you. She's behind all of this. She's been plotting, waiting, making sure tonight was ruined." Adam's chest heaved. His eyes darted between me, the stranger, the documents, his sobbing bride. "Mom, please, tell me he's lying." I held his gaze, my voice quiet but unwavering. "He's not lying about knowing me. Years ago, when your father died, I found things I couldn't ignore. I sought help. He was one of the people who knew where to look. But Adam," I placed a hand on my chest, steadying myself. "I never used it for revenge. I saved it for a moment like this." The stranger laughed, a bitter, mocking sound. "That's what she wants you to think. But tell them, Margaret, tell them what else you've been hiding. Tell them who else is on those papers." The officers shoved him upright, demanding names. But he only smiled wider, his teeth flashing in the light. "You'll find out soon enough. Because this isn't the end. This is just the beginning." And then, before anyone could react, the sound of shattering glass erupted again, not from the ballroom this time, but from the lobby at the front of the hotel. The ground trembled faintly. Guests screamed. And through the broken glass, dark figures in masks poured inside. The masked figures poured into the hotel like a shadow flooding light. Black clothing, heavy boots, and gloved hands carrying crowbars and blunt weapons. Gasps turned into screams as the wedding guests scattered, heels clicking and shoes sliding against the marble floor. Tables flipped, glasses shattered, chandeliers swung. "Police!" Down on the ground, the officers shouted, guns raised, but the intruders didn't flinch. They spread fast, moving with precision, like they had rehearsed this chaos. One of them grabbed the mic stand from the band and slammed it against the floor, sending a piercing feedback screech through the speakers. The guests clutched their ears. Panic rose. Someone shouted, "They're here for the documents." The cuffed stranger smirked from against the wall, his eyes flashing toward the officers who held the 2 envelopes. "Told you," he muttered, almost gleeful. The lead officer barked orders into his radio. "Back up now. Multiple intruders. Armed." But static answered him. The signal was jammed. Adam pulled me behind him, his body tense, protective. His voice trembled. "Mom, stay close to me. Please." Vanessa, still on the floor in her gown, shrieked and clawed at Adam's leg. "No, stay with me. They're after her. She's the one they want." She glared at me like a cornered animal. "Give her to them, and they'll leave us alone." Her words hit the room like a slap. Some guests actually froze, their eyes flickering between me and the masked intruders. For a split second, I saw it in their faces. They believed her. Adam's face twisted with shock. "Vanessa, what are you saying?" "I'm saying she caused this." Vanessa screamed, pointing straight at me. "She's been holding secrets for years." The stranger said it himself. "They only came because of her." The masked men moved closer, circling, their heavy boots crunching glass. One pointed at the table where the documents lay. Another jabbed a finger toward me. The message was clear. The officer closest to the evidence tightened his grip. "You're not taking anything," he barked. But his voice was drowned out by a roar of chaos as one intruder hurled a smoke canister onto the dance floor. White fog billowed upward, swallowing the chandeliers, cloaking the screams. I coughed, my eyes burning. The smoke wrapped around me, thick and choking. Hands grabbed at my arm. "Adams." His voice was hoarse in the haze. "Mom, we need to move." But another set of hands grabbed my other arm, cold, desperate, clawing. Vanessa's. Her voice was shrill, cracking under the weight of terror. "No, she's not leaving. If she stays, maybe they'll stop." For one terrifying moment, I was caught between them, my son pulling me to safety, his bride holding me hostage in her fear. The smoke swirled thicker, shouts overlapping with crashes and the pounding of boots. And then, through the blur of smoke, I saw one of the masked men raise a crowbar high, his eyes locked on me. Time seemed to stop. Adam yanked harder, shouting, "MOM." Vanessa shrieked, "Let her go," but not out of mercy, out of desperation. The crowbar swung down and clanged against something solid. One of the officers had thrown himself in the way, his shield catching the blow. Sparks flew. The masked man stumbled back. The officer roared, "Move her now." Adam didn't wait. He pulled me into his chest, dragging me through the smoke, his body shielding mine. My shoes slid on glass, my lungs burned, but his grip never loosened. Behind us, Vanessa screamed his name, her voice breaking into sobs. "Adam, don't you dare leave me here." But Adam didn't look back. Not once. He shoved open a side door, the smoke trailing us out into the cold night air. Sirens wailed in the distance, louder now, closer. The sky flashed red and blue again as more cruisers pulled up, doors slamming, officers shouting. I gasped for breath, clutching my son's arm. My chest ached, my dress torn, my hair damp with sweat. But I was alive. Adam's face was pale, his jaw tight. He looked at me, his eyes full of fire and fear. "Mom," he whispered, his voice shaking, "I don't know who to believe anymore. But if those men were after you, then there's more you're not telling me." Before I could answer, the hotel doors burst open behind us. Officers flooded out, dragging one of the masked men in cuffs. Guests stumbled into the night, coughing and crying. And then screams erupted from inside. One officer shouted into his radio, "We've got a hostage." The word froze me in place. Hostage. Someone inside had been taken, and in my bones, before anyone said it out loud, I already knew who it was. Vanessa. The word hostage tore through the night like a gunshot. The guests outside shrieked, huddling together in clusters as the police barked for everyone to stay back. Blue and red lights bathed the hotel walls, sirens howling, radios crackling with frantic orders. Adam froze, his hand still gripping my arm. His face drained of color. "Vanessa," he whispered, his voice breaking. "They've got Vanessa." I felt his grip tighten until it hurt, his body trembling with panic. "Mom, they'll kill her." His eyes darted toward the hotel entrance, then back to me, torn between fear and fury. "You have to tell me the truth right now. What do they want? What are they after? Because if I lose her tonight," his voice cracked, "I won't forgive you." Before I could answer, the officer who had blocked the crowbar blow stormed out, his shield still smeared with soot. "Everyone quiet," he roared. The crowd stilled instantly. His voice carried like thunder. "We've confirmed one hostage inside. Female. The suspects are armed and demanding something specific." The crowd buzzed with nervous whispers. Adam stepped forward. "What are they asking for?" The officer's eyes flicked to me, just for a second, but enough for my stomach to drop. Then he spoke, his voice heavy. "They're demanding the rest of the documents. All of them. They said they know who has more." The whispers swelled into chaos again. Heads turned, eyes sharp and accusing. Some pointed straight at me. Adam staggered back, staring at me like I'd grown a second face. "Mom, you do have more, don't you?" I swallowed hard. My heart pounded, so loud it drowned out the sirens. "Adam," I began, my voice trembling, "after your father died, I found things, papers, deals that didn't make sense. I kept them hidden because I didn't know who to trust. I was waiting for the right moment." His eyes burned into mine. "The right moment? You waited until my wedding night." Tears stung my eyes, but my voice stayed steady. "Because tonight was when the truth walked into the light. If I hadn't brought those papers, you'd be tied to their lies forever. Adam shook his head, his hands tangled in his hair. And now my wife is paying the price for your secrets. The officer cut in, snapping orders into his radio. We're negotiating. No one moves until we give the signal. But his eyes kept flicking back to me. He knew. They all knew. The key to this nightmare wasn't inside the hotel. It was standing right there in front of him. Adam grabbed my shoulders, desperation dripping from every word. Mom, please. If you have anything else, give it to them. I don't care what it is. I don't care how deep this goes. Just give it up before they hurt her. The crowd pressed closer, hungry for resolution, for blood, for anything that would break the tension. Their whispers cut through me like knives. She's hiding something. She's the reason this happened. It's her fault. My chest ached. My son's eyes pleaded. The sirens wailed. And then, through the smoke-filled doors of the hotel, a masked man appeared, dragging Vanessa by the arm. Her gown was torn, her veil gone, her face streaked with sweat and tears. A knife glinted against her throat. The crowd screamed. Cameras flashed. The man's voice boomed through the night. Bring us the rest of the documents, or she dies right here. He yanked her closer, the blade pressing against her skin. Vanessa wailed, her voice raw and broken. Adam, help me. Adam collapsed to his knees, his hands clawing at his hair, his scream ripping through the chaos. No. And then, as the world spun into madness, every head turned to me, because they all knew the next move was mine. The standoff turned the night into stone. No one moved. No one breathed. The knife at Vanessa's throat gleamed under the flashing sirens, a cruel reflection of the fear painted across her face. Bring us the rest of the documents. The masked man barked, his voice muffled but sharp. We know she has them. You have 5 minutes. Vanessa sobbed, her mascara running down her cheeks. Adam, don't let me die. Don't let her kill me. She jerked her chin toward me as if I had put the blade there myself. Adam turned, his eyes wild, his body shaking with rage and desperation. Mom. His voice cracked into a shout that tore through me. Do you have them or not? Tell me the truth. The officers spread out in a line, shields raised, weapons trained, trying to corral the intruders. One officer hissed into his radio, snipers not in position yet. We need more time. But time was the one thing we didn't have. I felt every pair of eyes on me, my sons, the guests, the reporters crowding the barricade outside. The weight of suspicion pressed down like chains. My heart pounded in my ears. I stepped forward, my hands raised. Yes, I said, my voice cutting through the noise. I have more. Gasps shot through the crowd. The masked man yanked Vanessa tighter, his knife digging into her skin. Then bring them now, or she bleeds. Adam spun to me, his face pale. Where? Where are they? Mom. His voice was breaking apart, but there was still that boy inside him. The boy who once believed I could fix anything. Please, don't let them kill her. Tears blurred my vision. They're safe, I whispered. Locked away. I never wanted you to see them. Not like this. The lead officer shot me a sharp glance. Ma'am, if you're in possession of evidence, you need to tell us where right now. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned urgency. The masked man's voice roared again. 2 minutes. He shook Vanessa, her scream echoing into the night. Adam grabbed my wrists, his grip tight, his eyes begging. Mom, I don't care about the lies, the secrets, any of it. Just save her. Please. His voice broke into a whisper. I love her. The world narrowed down to his face. My son, torn apart, begging for the woman who had humiliated me, mocked me, shoved a tray of plastic cups into my hands, and told me that was all I was good for. And still, here he was, willing to sacrifice anything for her. I closed my eyes, my chest aching. Love could blind. Love could wound. But love also defined who we really were. I opened my eyes, looked straight at the officer, and said, "They're in a safety deposit box at Hamilton First Bank." The crowd erupted with gasps. The officer's radio hissed to life, his voice sharp as he relayed the information. The masked man's smirk grew beneath his hood. "Good," he snarled. "Then you'll take us there. Or she dies before your precious son's eyes." The officers raised their weapons higher. "Not happening," the lead one barked. "You release her now, or we'll." But before he could finish, one of the other intruders pulled something from his jacket. A small device, blinking red. He raised it high, his voice booming. "Stand down, or we blow this place sky high." Screams erupted again. Guests stumbled backward. Officers froze. Reporters shouted from behind the barricade. And Adam turned to me once more, his face white with terror, his lips trembling. "Mom," he whispered, "what did you drag us into?" The masked man pressed the knife harder against Vanessa's skin. "Your move, Margaret. Save your son's bride, or bury her with the rest of these people." The night held its breath, and for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about my secrets anymore. It was about survival. The device blinked red in the intruder's hand, its tiny light pulsing like a countdown to disaster. The ballroom, the guests, the officers, all of us seemed to freeze, caught in that terrible rhythm. "Stand down," the masked man growled, pressing the blade tighter against Vanessa's throat, "or everyone here pays the price. The bride dies first." Vanessa whimpered, choking on her sobs. "Adam, please. Please don't let them do this to me." Her hands shook as she clawed at the man's wrist, her eyes wild, her veil long gone, her gown shredded and smeared with dirt. Adam dropped to his knees on the pavement outside, both hands clutching his head. His voice broke into raw sobs. "Mom, you can't let them kill her. Please, give them what they want. I'll do anything." The lead officer edged forward, his shield raised. "We're not negotiating with terrorists. Drop the weapon and release the hostage." His voice was thunder, but the tremor in it betrayed the danger. He'd seen the device. He knew what it meant. The intruder, holding the device, sneered. "Try me. One wrong move, and this hotel becomes a tomb." Gasps ripped through the crowd. A bridesmaid fainted again, collapsing into someone's arms. Guests clung to each other, their whispers frantic. "We're going to die. It's a bomb. She brought this on us." I stepped forward, my voice firm though my knees shook. "Enough." My words cut through the chaos. All eyes swung to me. "You want me?" I said, staring straight at the man, holding Vanessa. "You said this was about the documents. Then take me. Let her go." The crowd erupted into shocked murmurs. Adam's head snapped up, his eyes blazing. "Mom, no, don't do this." He scrambled toward me, grabbing my hand with both of his, clinging like he had when he was a boy afraid of thunderstorms. "They'll kill you. They don't want peace. They want destruction." But my voice stayed steady. "I've lived long enough to know one thing, Adam. Cowards hide behind bombs. But men like this, they don't want to blow everything up. They want leverage. And right now, I'm worth more to them than she is." The intruder tilted his head, studying me through the mask. He shoved Vanessa to the side, keeping the blade close, but loosening his grip just enough to make her stumble. His voice rumbled. "You'd come with us? No tricks." I lifted my chin. "On one condition. You release her." Adam's grip on me tightened. His voice was desperate. "Mom, please don't." But the masked man interrupted with a low laugh. "Brave. Or foolish. Fine. We'll make the trade." He shoved Vanessa toward the officers, then jabbed his blade toward me. "Come here. Now." The officers raised their weapons instantly. "Don't move," The lead one barked, "Ma'am, stay back. They'll use you and dump you." But I knew. The moment I saw the device, I knew there was no safe choice. Only choices that bought us time. I looked at Adam, my hands cupping his face. "Son," I whispered, my voice soft but steady. "Sometimes the only way to save someone is to stand in the fire for them. I need you to trust me, just like you always did when you were little." Tears spilled down his face. "I can't lose you," he choked. "Not again. Not like Dad." I kissed his forehead, gently, like I had when he was a child. "You won't lose me. Not tonight." And before he could stop me, I stepped forward into the circle of masked men. The one with the knife grabbed my arm, yanking me close. The one with the device smirked. "Smart woman." But smart doesn't always mean safe. They began pulling me toward the waiting black van at the curb. Adam lunged, but two officers held him back, their voices low and urgent. "Not now. Let her go. We'll get her back." The night swallowed me as they shoved me into the van, the doors slamming shut behind me. The last thing I saw through the tinted glass was Adam collapsing to his knees on the pavement, screaming my name into the siren-lit dark. And the last thing I heard before the van roared away was the stranger's voice in my ear, cold and final. "You think you know the truth, Margaret? Tonight, you'll learn the rest." The van sped into the night, its tires screeching against the pavement, its engine growling like a beast unleashed. I sat wedged between two masked men, their grips like iron on my arms. The smell of smoke and gasoline filled the air, heavy and suffocating. My wrists were bound with a plastic tie, tight enough to sting. The one with the blinking device sat across from me, his mask tilted slightly, so I could see the curve of his smirk beneath. "You made it easy," he said. His voice was calm, almost casual. "Most people beg. You walked right in." I held his stare, steady even though my heart pounded. "You wanted leverage. Now you've got it. But you still won't get what you think." He chuckled, low and bitter. "You're wrong, Margaret. We're already getting everything we want. Because you don't just hold papers. You hold bloodlines, connections, secrets you don't even realize yet." The words chilled me. Bloodlines. The man next to him leaned forward, his voice rough. "Your husband, Adam's father. You think he died clean? You think he wasn't part of this before you ever found those papers?" I froze, my breath catching. The world tilted for a second, the roar of the van muffling. My husband, the man I'd buried, the man I'd cried for every night, part of this? The smirking one saw the flicker of shock on my face and grinned wider. "Ah, so you didn't know. Good. That means when the truth comes out, it'll hurt more." I clenched my jaw, forcing my voice steady. "You're lying. He was a good man." The man beside me barked a laugh. "Good men don't hide offshore accounts. Good men don't forge deeds. Good men don't leave trails that other men like us follow." Their words dug at old scars, but I didn't let them see me break. I had learned long ago that silence was stronger than tears. The van jolted as it turned sharply. Through the tinted window, I glimpsed dark warehouses rising against the night sky. They slowed, weaving between rusted fences and cracked concrete, until finally the van screeched to a stop. The doors flung open, and I was yanked out into the cold night. The air reeked of oil and dust. A massive warehouse loomed before me, its windows black, its steel doors chained and scarred with rust. The kind of place no one left willingly. They shoved me inside. The space was cavernous, the ceiling lost in shadows, the floor littered with crates and broken pallets. A single hanging bulb flickered in the center, casting long, jagged shadows. And waiting beneath that bulb was the cuffed stranger from the wedding. Only now he wasn't cuffed. He stood free, his arms crossed, his smirk the same as it had been when he tossed that second envelope onto the ballroom floor. "Welcome," he said smoothly. "Told you this wasn't the end." The masked men stepped back as if he were the one in charge. He walked toward me slowly, his shoes echoing in the hollow space. "You thought you could play savior, Margaret. You thought you could expose a few dirty deeds and come out clean. But the truth," his voice dropped, sharp and cruel, "the truth is dirtier than you can handle." I forced my chin high. "Then why keep me alive? If you want to scare me, you'll have to try harder." He stopped inches from me, his smirk widening. "Alive? Of course. You're worth more alive, because you're the only one who can convince your son to hand over what's left. And trust me, there's more, much more." The masked men dragged me to a chair and forced me down, binding my arms to the rests. My pulse thundered, but my eyes never left his. "You won't win," I said quietly. He leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. "Oh, Margaret, we already are." Far away, sirens wailed faintly, growing closer again. The police were on their trail. But here, in this cavern of shadows, I was alone. And for the first time that night, I realized the truth wasn't just dangerous. It was lethal. The warehouse smelled of rust and gasoline, every breath burning my lungs. The single bulb above flickered, swaying slightly as if even the air itself was unsettled. The stranger circled me slowly, like a predator studying prey. His footsteps echoed, each one scraping against my nerves. "You see, Margaret," he said smoothly, "this didn't begin with Vanessa's family. It began long before her, before Adam, before you were ever part of it." He leaned close, his eyes sharp and cruel. "It began with your husband." My chest tightened. I shook my head. "No, Henry was an honest man. He worked hard. He died with secrets." The man cut me off, his voice sharp as a blade. He nodded to one of the masked men, who dropped a thick folder onto a crate in front of me. The papers inside spilled across the wood, pages covered with seals, signatures, transfers. My eyes caught on one name over and over, Henry Lane. The world tilted. My husband's name, printed in places it shouldn't have been. Land deeds, bank accounts, transfers offshore. The kind of trail I had seen tied to Vanessa's family, but this was older, deeper. "No," I whispered. "This isn't real. This can't be real." The stranger smirked, enjoying the crack in my voice. "It's very real. Henry was one of us, a partner, until he tried to walk away. That's why he died." My stomach dropped. The night my husband died came flooding back. The phone call, the rushed voices, the quiet funeral. The questions I buried, the pieces that never fit. Could it have been? I clenched my fists against the ropes binding me. "You're lying. You killed him, didn't you?" His smirk widened. "We didn't have to. Men like him dig their own graves when they think they can outsmart us." The words stabbed deeper than I wanted to admit, but I wouldn't let him see me break. I lifted my chin. "If this is true, then why take me? I wasn't part of his sins." "You're wrong." He leaned closer, his breath warm and bitter. "You're the one holding the last pieces. And Adam, poor, naive Adam, will hand them over once he realizes his father wasn't the man he thought he was." At the mention of Adam, my chest ached. My son, my boy who was even now outside, probably tearing the night apart to find me. He didn't know the weight of the truth waiting for him here. He didn't know that the father he worshipped had hands stained with the very dirt I was fighting against. The stranger straightened, signaling to the masked men. "Keep her here. She'll crack when she sees her son begging for her life." The men tightened the ropes around my wrists and ankles. One shoved a chair against the door. Another checked the blinking device again, its red light still pulsing. And then the sound cut through the warehouse. Engines. Multiple. Fast. The masked men froze, their heads snapping toward the doors. The stranger's smirk faltered. He grabbed the folder and shoved it under his arm. They're here sooner than I thought. Through the cracks in the old steel doors, flashes of red and blue lit up the darkness outside. Shouts echoed, sharp and commanding. The police had found us. And with them, Adam. My heart pounded. Rescue was close. But the stranger's hand moved to his belt, pulling out a pistol, his eyes flashing with menace. If they come in here, he hissed, you'll be the first to die. The bulb above flickered again, plunging the warehouse into momentary darkness. My breath caught, the ropes cutting deeper into my skin. And then, through the dark, I heard it. Adam's voice, loud, desperate, and unshakable. M.O.M., I'm coming for you. The sound of Adam's voice echoed through the warehouse, raw and desperate. M.O.M., I'm coming for you. Every masked head snapped toward the doors. The stranger's smirk vanished, his pistol snapping up as he hissed to his men, hold the line. They won't take her alive. The red bulb above flickered again, casting jagged shadows across the cracked floor. My heart hammered, so loud it drowned the sirens outside. I strained against the ropes, my skin burning as they cut deeper, but I couldn't stop. I had to see my son, even if it was only one last time. Outside, boots pounded, voices shouted commands. The warehouse shook with the heavy slam of armored vehicles taking position. A booming voice carried through a megaphone. This is the police. Lay down your weapons and release the hostage. The masked men muttered curses, pacing like caged dogs. The stranger laughed, low and bitter, raising his pistol toward my chest. Hear that? They think they're in control. But you know what happens next, Margaret? You watch your son walk through that door, and you watch him break when he realizes he's too late. My breath caught, but before he could move closer, the steel doors rattled violently. A blast shook the ground, flashbang, light and sound swallowed the room in a burst of white. I squeezed my eyes shut. The masked men staggered, clutching their ears. The stranger snarled, trying to steady himself, his pistol waving wildly. And then he was there. Adam. He stormed through the smoke, shielded by two officers, but faster, braver, reckless in a way only love makes you. His eyes locked on me, tied to the chair under the flickering bulb. His voice ripped from his chest. Let her go. The stranger yanked me up, pressing the pistol hard against my temple. One more step and she dies, he barked, spittle flying, his mask hanging loose. His men regrouped, weapons raised. Adam froze, his chest heaving, his hands trembling at his sides. He looked at me, just me, and in that split second, I saw all the years between us, scraped knees, bedtime stories, whispered prayers. His eyes burned with tears, but his voice was steel. Then take me instead. The words stopped everything. The masked men faltered. Even the stranger blinked, in surprise. Adam lifted his hands, slowly stepping forward. You want leverage? You want bloodlines? Then I'm worth more than she is. Let her go, and I'll go with you. My heart shattered. Adam, no! I screamed, my voice hoarse, my wrists tearing against the ropes. Don't you dare. The stranger's lips curled into a grin. Brave boy, just like your father. Too brave for his own good. He shoved me back into the chair and pointed the pistol at Adam. Fine, come closer. Adam's legs shook, but he moved. Step by step, he crossed the floor, past the crates, past the shadows, until he stood only feet away from the man who held my life in his hands. His voice was low, steady, but I could hear the fear beneath. Let her walk out that door, Adam said, and you can take me anywhere you want. The stranger's grin widened. Deal. But before the trade could happen, a shot cracked through the warehouse. Glass shattered overhead. The bulb burst, plunging us into darkness. Screams erupted, masked men firing blindly, officers shouting as they stormed in. Chaos swallowed everything. The thunder of boots, the stench of gunpowder, the roar of weapons. And in that chaos, I felt the stranger's grip shift. The pistol left my temple for just a fraction of a second. I knew what I had to do. I twisted hard, kicking the chair backward. The ropes dug into my wrists as I slammed into the floor, pain jolting up my spine. The pistol fired, the bullet ricocheting off concrete. No! Adam screamed. Officers charged, their shields raised, gunfire cracking through the dark. The stranger staggered back, dragging the folder of papers with him, firing wildly. His men scattered, some falling, some fleeing into the shadows. And then, through the smoke and chaos, Adam was at my side, ripping at the ropes with trembling hands. "I've got you, Mom. I've got you." His tears splashed onto my skin, warm against the cold ropes. The stranger's voice roared from the shadows, furious and unbroken. "This isn't over. The lane name will burn before this ends." And then he was gone. The gunfire faded. The sirens wailed louder. Officers swept the warehouse, their voices calling clear. But the stranger had vanished into the night, his words still echoing in the hollow dark. Adam pulled me into his arms, clutching me like he'd never let go. "I thought I lost you," he whispered, his voice breaking. I held him tight, my heart torn between relief and dread. Because even as the police pulled us to safety, even as the flashing lights swallowed the night, I knew the stranger was right. This wasn't over. It was only the beginning.